The rest of the solids in this group are going to be for fun. So the tetrahedron, we're going to assume that these are equilateral. So every uh, edge, every face is going to have the same distance. So we have a couple of methods of working with that. Start a new part, and one of the other things we need to do is experiment, not be afraid to make mistakes, see what we can do with the constructions. And let me escape out of that. I went into the top plane just semi-automatically, and I'm kind of visualizing the base triangle. I could draw the three lines, but with the polygon, we have three or more. And at some point you will get enough small segments that basically will become a circle. So a polygon much above 30 or 40 sides is going to look really so much like a circle, it's might as well be a circle. But if I do three sides, that will create my triangle. I'm going to do the left click, hold down and drag. I want the inference of one of the vertices to align with the origin. We need to pick a length for our side. So here I've selected the origin and a vertex, and that's going to be horizontal. Picking a length for the side, I want to watch that smart dimension because that'll go from linear horizontal to linear vertical to linear across the angle. So we'll pick one for 5. And when I create the feature, I know because of our trig that it's not going to quite be a height of 5, but 5 will encompass the size of our geometry. All right, so with that shape, I'm going to do a layout sketch. We'll go into the front plane, and I'll start my sketch. I want a center line first, and I know it's going to go from the origin up some distance. And then if I turn the for construction off, that will send it back, or I can just right click, select, go back into the line, or hit the L on the keyboard. Again, having so many choices, it reverted anyway. So that's one of the reasons that it jumped over and it didn't get those. All right, so here's a quick trick to the reverse those. If I select right to left, I'm selecting crossing. Anything that crosses the box will be selected. If we go from left to right, anything inside the box will be selected. So if we don't get all of our geometry in, it's not going to select. And then I'm just going to switch to construction geometry. All right, so that length will become 5. And then having done that, I just thinking that that really isn't my cutting edge. I want to take the edge off of this corner, off of this side, to be able to create my geometry. Really, this is just the construction to end up with a line along that vertice that's going to be 5, and then when I make the cut in the other direction, that's going to create my my tetrahedral pyramid. So going from endpoint to endpoint, again, because of the kind of the falling over on the edge, that's not going to quite cut. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up, bring a line up to the top, and it picked up collinear for me on a inference. If it hadn't, I would do a select and a control select for the lines and force the collinear in place. So the construction lines don't participate. The object line and the line segment to make sure it cuts all the way through are going to be the tool. And then we'll do an extrude cut. Kind of annoys me that they defaulted to the blind end condition, which in most cases, if we leave an open profile, an open contour, it's going to be through all both. So we'll talk more about those choices on our end conditions later. All right, so that makes the cut. I want to reuse that sketch as a possible that I can use to rotate. All right, so a circular pattern. And the direction or the axis of revolution will be the center line. The feature that I'm going to cut to will be the cut extrude. And we're going to go 3 or more. Well, that's too many. We need 3 sides, so we will put that in and go ahead and make the cut. Alright, so when I hide the sketch, that's just going to clean up after myself, and I can verify that we are going to end up with all 5-inch edges by looking at the bottom, and the length is 5, length of 5, length of 5. Alright, so one of the quick tips for the measurement tool is under Evaluate, we can go to Measure or to Mask Properties. If I'm using that enough to verify my geometry, this would be another place where I'd want to customize. So if I go into the commands, and I think we're going to be under Tools, and I look for the little tape measure, and I can drag and drop the tape measure up to my heads up, and then I can get a little bit more information depending on the selection if I use the measuring tool. So 5-inch, I can clear that selection, and 5-inch, and if I wanted to look at the angles, it would give me a little more information on the 60-degree and the total length. All right, so that's one method. It has its challenges. We have to do 2 sketches, so I'm going to utilize the solid body and hide, and we'll do another. So let's go with the top plane again. I will use the polygon to create my triangle, and let's stay with the 5-inch side. Okay, and because it's still in blue, that means it can rotate. So again, hold down, select the first point, hold down the control button, select the origin, or vice versa, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK. So the loft method, which we've seen previously, and we're going to do a few more lofts, but consider loft the more complicated of the geometry. So we'll probably save it for special occasions. So I'm going to make sure that I have the top plane selected. We're going to go into the plane, and I can drag that out some distance. No, but I have kind of the same problem. There we go. I have kind of the same problem that I did with the cutting the edges off, in that I don't really know where that plane is going to be located. So again, I need a construction sketch to help with making those angles even. So front plane bisects the triangle, will end up on the vertex at that side. And I open up the sketch. Make sure I get it this time. I need, we'll go with the center line. Center line's helpful. I don't necessarily have to have, but it does come in handy. And then now's the time to start using some of the shortcut keys, L on the keyboard. And I'll just look and make sure that those are going coincident. And then I can set a distance of 5 inches. All right, so what I did to reorder for the plane, rather than deleting it or removing it, I used the rollback bar. So sliding that up makes it so that it's kind of in a suppression state, but as far as the history base is concerned, it hasn't happened yet. So now I can go back and edit the feature, and this will be parallel with a reference at that point. And so when I've tried this before, the endpoint of the line did not work for my loft. So opening up a sketch on that plane and placing the point at the origin or at the intersection gets me a desired result. All right, so I can right-click and hide, right-click and hide, and that will get me my geometry. All right, so sketch 5 is the top. Sketch 4 is kind of the guide curve if we need it. Sketch 3 is the base, and we'll go into a lofted boss base, and that'll create the geometry. So as far as the vertices, the standard guide curve is just going to go to one of the points. We can probably drag it off of that, but it's just going to snap, go to another point. All right, so that gives me my same geometry, and if we show, I'm not going to see any differences between those two shapes. So that kind of verifies the size that I'm working with. One last one with the loft. I'll go ahead and do the octahedron, and we can do the same thing with the cuts, and we'll use the circular pattern and the loft as a secondary solid body. If we want to create a polygon with 4 sides, it would be the same as using the center rectangle. Right? The main difference is with the polygon, we're going to end up with a base circle. So if I go up one side, instead of having the center lines defining the center point of the circle, we'll end up with the construction circle at the center. I do want this to angle in, so we'll just make one of these lines horizontal and then give it a size. We'll go with, let's go to 4 inch, and we'll see a little bit of an intersection. I don't really, not really concerned with the height, so let's just go ahead and extrude this out, and we'll let it go out 4 inches. All right, and then I can open up a sketch on one of the sides. We'll go from the midpoint to the corner. And again, if I wanted all of these edges to be the same, I'm not sure how that works with the pyramidal shape. So you may have to do a little bit of calculating on that one. All right, so the through all, and it takes one side off of the cut. So in this case, I don't have anything to revolve around necessarily, so we'll go back into the front plane. Don't necessarily need to be a center line, but it does need to be a line that we can utilize. And I see the little blue dot down there, so it did not define. We'll drag it back to the origin so that it becomes a fully defined sketch. And now's also the time where we're going to look at these sketches. And I don't see a parenthesis with a minus sign in front, so I did get that to fully define. All right, so we'll go into a circular pattern, the direction of the cut for the axis of revolution, and then the features and faces will be the cut extrude, and there's going to be a total of 4 of those. Right, so if I were to then go into a mirror, I would be able to mirror across the face. And this is one of those instances where I could try to pick out the features, but because there's several features, I would just as soon use the body. So circular pattern 2. And if we don't merge, I'll end up with a mirror feature that will act as the other solid body. I do want this to be one solid body for my shape, so that gives me my octahedron. All right, so 8 sides of the shape, and then the last one again with the loft. I will go ahead and keep that sketch as a usable. If I go this route, maybe I'll add one more to that sketch. So I can always go back and edit the sketch. I don't want to mess with any of the existing geometry and create possible change that will affect the model we just created. I'm doing a select, control select for the lines so that they can be equal. All right, and it's basically being driven off of that other boss extrude, so kind of get what I get there. All right, so in the top plane, we'll go back into the to the sketch. I did a polygon last time. Let's do a center rectangle. drag that out. And we'll check and make sure that the loft won't select those endpoints. Last time I tried it, it did not. So I'm going to set those to equal. Pick my edges. And we'll just try real quick. Feature, lofted boss base, profile. So it comes up with a contour selection tool. And I don't see any of those available in that group. So we'll need to create our planes. I don't know if it will. Let's try that. If I do a front plane, I was trying to get away from creating the 2 additional planes, so this will be a quick experiment. If I make the points, but the points are perpendicular to the plane that I wanted to create. Let's see, that's going to be sketch 8. If I hide that out of my way and then go with a lofted boss base, we should be able to go from point. All right, so it did pick it to the profile to the point, and notice that we ended up with just a little bit of curvature in that mix. So while it's really cool looking, it does not exactly meet my my geometry. All right, so this would be one where I'd want to go back to. Let's see, I need to go into the loft and look at my shape. All right, so there is the rectangle. And the problem with the rectangle here is I'm going to have coincident. All right, coincident. There is a horizontal. See if I can delete that. We'll take out some of these relations. And the problem with taking out relations, we may have unexpected results. So as I try to drag this, I'm going to end up with some weird geometry. So hitting Control Z returns it. I'm going to go with some perpendiculars. And so I'm just control selecting my geometry. And a lot of this is getting familiar with the relations, being comfortable with applying those geometric constraints. And as you rotate, kind of understanding what it is that is happening with the geometry. So if I make that horizontal, I've rotated it degrees. I still have the same kind of shift in the geometry, but if I were to go back, let's see, I want to do the rollback once more, go into the front plane. I'm probably not going to be able to do that because I need that sketch to happen before the loft. So we're just going to have to kick that one out, and sometimes the strategy works and sometimes it doesn't. So in this case, I'll delete the loft feature. Make sure that you're not deleting the absorbed features. And what I'm looking for is to create a guide curve in the front plane that will force those to stay more linear than trying to curve through the lofted geometry. All right, so that gives me a guide curve. So if I go back into the loft, and making this way more complicated than it probably needs to be, pick our geometries, and there is sketch 9, and we'll bring it up to sketch 10, and then what the guide curve should do is cause an error. So chances are the second point is not going to have the desired results, so I will just have to backtrack and use my mirror again. All right, so things sometimes they work really well, and sometimes not quite as expected. But the curvature is not a desired result, and because of the angle, I'm going to see those different shapes as they show up. So we have the loft and the mirror, and apparently on that one I did not hit the feature to merge solids. between the two features, so we ended up with an extra. So if I show and then right click and show, I'm going to see the overlap of those two geometries. Right, so here's another one of those strange shapes that if I wanted to join those, there is a tool to either combine or join depending on where you're at. So if we go to the insert features, and so in the case of possibly 3D printing one of these, I would want this to be a single body unless I was going to try and manage colors or do something strange here. But if I were to combine those two, we're going to add the two geometries. We could subtract or look at the common intersections. So if I pick those two, that gives me another option to where now I have kind of that weird multifaceted shape. All right, so again, feel free to experiment on these and generate geometry. Some of these are just mental exercises to look for the results, find out what works, and come up with solutions for future problems, future geometries.